Hey YouTube, welcome back to LadyGi. Today I have a special treat. I spoke to Lexi Hildebrand. She is a brown belt out of Olson Bearing Jiu Jitsu in Montana. And I got to chat with her about her training regime, what got her into Jiu Jitsu, and we also chatted about her experience being a heavyweight girl on the mat. And in our conversation, Lexi offered insight to school owners, instructors, professors, training partners on what goes through the mind of a heavyweight girl when she first steps on the mat. And what stuck out to me in our conversation, and also one of the reasons why I wanted to share Lexi's story, is that we never really hear from the heavyweight athletes. If you look around interviews or high-level athletes, they all kind of look the same. They all kind of are, either featherweight or, they all just kind of look very similar in size. And there are so many other athletes out there that work just as hard, but they're not really represented in the mainstream for whatever reason. I'm not sure what that reason is, but it's something that I really picked up on as someone who obviously looks different. I'm always going to stand out on the mat. It doesn't really bother me, but for other people, if they are not seeing themselves represented on the mats, it might be harder for them to see themselves practicing a sport. And so for me as a school owner, it was really important to learn about different shapes and sizes. Everybody's different, everyone's unique, everyone's jiu-jitsu is going to be different. We all know that, but coming into an academy where you do look different, and it's one thing to come in and you're starting a new sport, you don't know anyone, you're a little nervous, but then when you look on the mats and you don't see yourselves being represented, that can be a huge deterrent for a lot of people. And so I was happy to share and chat with Lexi. She's a total badass on the mat. She's a brown belt. Getting her brown belt is not an easy feat. It's something that you really, really have to work hard at. And so, getting that achievement is something really awesome. She's almost at her finish line. And so, yeah, without further ado, I'm going to let that video start and enjoy.
Hi.
Hey, Lexi. I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay, no worries.
All right. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Considering, thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it. And I'm again so sorry about the technical issues. I'm using our work computer. I usually use my own, so a lot of things had to get installed on here. But anyways, we're here. So glad to have you do this interview today, and hopefully. You said that you wanted to reach out to some women and just share your experience, how your training has been and all of that stuff. So we're going to get right into it. Why don't you just tell all of our viewers, this will be recorded and uploaded a little bit later, possibly next week. But why don't you tell me where you train, a little bit of background on yourself, your training and all of that good stuff.
Okay. So I'm Lexi. The gym that I currently train at, which is a story that I'll tell you, started calling me Panda about a year and a half ago. Okay. And I've never had a nickname in my entire life. It's always been Lexi or some version of Lexi. My dad calls me Bug, but that doesn't really count, right? That's like a parent nickname. And so they are big on nicknames. And they finally picked one for me and started calling me Panda about a year and a half ago, and it has stuck. And everybody calls me Panda now, and the kids, I'm Instructor Panda, and they love it. And when I get them like in my little groups, I'm like, my little panda cubs. And so that's what I call my like little groups of students during class. So the nickname is Panda. That's where my like Instagram handle and that kind of stuff comes. It's Pandemonium.
Awesome.
So they call me Panda. I have a tricky lineage, I guess you could say. So I'm directly under Professor Brandon Olson in Hamilton, Montana, who is a Silvio Bearing black belt.
Okay.
So I'm part of the Silvio Bearing lineage, but I moved after college when I graduated away from my black belt. And so I train at Imperial BJJ in Butte, Montana, which is actually a One World Jiu Jitsu affiliate. Okay. So on the day-to-day, I train at Imperial BJJ in Butte, but I'm affiliated through the Bearing system. And my professor is about 3.5 hours away from where I actually live. So he's too far away to train on the day-to-day, but he's close enough that I can still train with him, you know, when I need to or when I want to, kind of a thing. So, and I've been very fortunate that Master Silvio has wanted me to stay in his lineage. And so he's kind of done some stuff to make sure that I stay in his lineage. And I've been very fortunate. He gave me my blue and my purple, and he was on a Zoom call watching our tests for my brown belt. And so even with the way the current world situation is, I'm going to say he was there for my brown belt test and gave me my brown belt. It was a little through technology, but it still worked.
That's awesome.
And so I've been born and raised in Montana, lived here my whole life. I spent 2 years at the University of Wyoming, but came back. So I'm graduated at the University of Montana. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration with a marketing option. I work for the state of Montana for the small business development centers for the state. So I've got one brother who's older than me. Live with my mom and dad. We've got horses and dogs and cats. So if you hear the dogs or cat, he just jumped up on here, so you might see a tail a couple of times. So we've got all the animals and all that kind of stuff. So that's yeah. If I'm not doing jiu-jitsu, I'm usually doing something with the horses or the dogs or something. So
do you live out like in the country, I'm assuming then?
Yeah, we live about 3 miles out of town from a smaller town. So for me to get to jiu-jitsu, I have to travel about 45 minutes. During the winter on the bad roads, sometimes they can take over an hour for me to get to jiu-jitsu. And that's just one way. I travel obviously there and back. So it's usually on the really good days, I can get there, you know, just under 45 minutes. Wow. If I'm speeding a little bit.
Dedication there.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that's about the closest. So I kind of live in, like, if I go one direction, I go to Butte. If I go the other direction, I go to Helena, and they're both the same distance away from me, but in different directions. And so even if I were to train in Helena, it would still be about the same distance away, no matter where I train. So I got super fortunate and very lucky to find the Imperial group, and they've very much turned into a second family or third family, however you want to count the families.
Like most jiu-jitsu academies, right? Like they do, you kind of, you get sucked into the training, yes, but then you become a family, and that's the nice thing about jiu-jitsu. I think everyone can kind of attest to that. So are there a lot of jiu-jitsu, like is there a lot of variety where you are, or is there just like the 1 or 2 academies close to you?
Surprisingly, yes. It's grown quite a bit in the last probably 3 to 4 years. When I first started, I started at a gym in Helena because I was living just outside of Helena at the time. And so I started training at one gym, and then there was like that rival gym across the town or across, but it was kind of like rival in the MMA world. There wasn't, like, if you wanted to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there was really only the place I was training at. And then when I moved to Missoula for school, there was the offshoot of my black belt's gym, and then another gym. And then you had to travel down to Hamilton, which is about 30 miles outside of Missoula, to go see his school. And then that was about it. And now it seems like in all of the major cities, so the big 7 in Montana, there's like 2 to 3 gyms, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms in each city, if not more. Oh. So it's kind of grown a lot. So Butte has 2. I train at one of them. Helena has 3 gyms right now. Bozeman's got 3, including the new Cron Gracie Academy. And then Missoula's got like 4 or 5 at this point. And then there's smaller towns across the state that have gyms as well, outside of the big 7. But yeah, they're I mean, seems like all over the place now.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. That I think it's in the United States itself, because I'm in Canada, but where I am, it's starting, like people are starting to, make gyms here and there, like people that get their black belts, and now they're starting to open their own gym, but it's still very small. And we don't have huge jiu-jitsu population. And it's kind of nice because you kind of know the other school owners. You see them at tournaments, and the tournaments, it's always usually the same people. There's lots of people, but you kind of get to know a lot of the people in the jiu-jitsu community, which is really nice. Especially for a female, because there's not a whole lot of us generally anyways. But how did you get started in jiu-jitsu? What brought you in?
So I did track and all sorts of sports in like middle school and high school. And I did powerlifting in high school. And then when I got to college, I did marching band, and that was it. And marching band's not really, it's not a sport. I loved marching band, but it's not a sport. And I had just kind of gotten to where I wasn't really doing anything. I had a summer internship, so I was working full time, and then getting off of my job and going home and sitting on the couch and not doing anything. And I'm a pretty strong person. So for me to go to the gym and lift and do that powerlifting stuff, I lift enough that I need a spotter for a lot of like the lifts that I knew how to do at the time. I couldn't just go and safely lift. And so I just wouldn't go. And I couldn't, I mean, I could. So my thing with like going to a gym like Planet Fitness or, the ones where you go in and they have all the machines is I don't know what to do. Like I know how to do each of the machines, but I don't know which ones to combine. I don't know how many reps to do. So I just wasn't working out, and I never enjoyed running. So it was like, I just wasn't doing anything. And I was sitting on the couch after work one day and was like, I need to start doing something. And I was in the mindset where I need to do it with people. So I need to find some sort of exercising way that I can meet new people and get out of my like shell that I was in. And for some reason was like, my brother did little guy wrestling. Like, let's try that. And so I put it into Google. And the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu gym that I started at was the top one that popped up. And so I called the number that was associated with it and started talking to this guy named Brett Hamlin, who was amazing. And I mean, I was completely honest on the phone, like, I'm a bigger girl. Is this even something that I can do? Like, if I'm going to hurt people or you don't think I can do it, then, I'll keep going down my sport list and see what I can come up with. And he was like, no, I've had women of all different shapes and sizes come in before, and you can do it. Trust me, you can do it. Come on in, give it a try. Let's see what happens. And so I went for my first class, and second drill in was shrimps, I think was the second thing we did. And for the first time in my life, somebody told me I was athletic. He's like, wow, you're really athletic. And I never heard that from anybody ever in my life. And I was like, I don't know what he's talking about, but that made me feel good. So cool. And then I finished out the class. We'd worked like guard breaks, I think, or guard passes. And that night I bought a gi and signed a 3-month summer membership. And, I guess you could say the rest is history. I've bounced around because of school and jobs and that kind of stuff since then. But I was with him and he was a purple belt because when I started, there was only, I think, 3 black belts in the whole state. And so it was this big thing to see a black belt. Like, I was so used to seeing white belts and my purple belt coach, and that was it. And now they're all over the place. It seems they're not. I mean, it's still pretty rare to have, a high ranking jiu-jitsu student, but at the time it was just me and a purple belt, and I got my first 3 stripes from him, did like 5 or 6 competitions with him in that first just over a year. And then I moved to Missoula for school and started with Professor Olson, and I've been under him ever since. So
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. So you mentioned that you compete. What's your training regime look like? Do you do cross training, or is it like strictly jujitsu? Are you more casual with your training intensity, or are you like strictly competition?
So the last competition that I did was our state championships. So not last year because of COVID, the year before was the last competition that I did. And there has been actually only one competition since COVID shut everything down. And it was one of those that if you went and competed, you'd have to quarantine for 2 weeks afterwards.
Great.
And it was the week before my brown belt test.
Okay.
And so I was like, not be able to do jujitsu 2 weeks before my test or go compete. You know what I mean? And to me, it didn't feel like it was worth it to go compete, especially since I didn't know if there was even going to be a bracket for me. And so I was like, I'm going to practice and get ready for my brown belt test instead of competing. So I haven't competed in probably a year and a half, 2 years at this point. Just because of COVID and everything. I was registered for world championships, IBJJF championships last year.
Oh, wow.
And then
Awesome.
it got postponed and then canceled. And so I've got this plane voucher from Delta that
Oh my gosh.
because I decided that last year was going to be my year. I was going to do world championships. I've been wanting to do it forever, and I was going to do it. And so that it wasn't really like a New Year's resolution, but it was, this is the year. So second week of January, I bought my hotel tickets, bought my flight, because they had the date set for when it was going to be. They just didn't open registrations for it. And so I was completely ready to go. My mom even booked a flight so that she could go with me. Ready to go, knew when it was working out, doing all the stuff, getting ready to go. And then they got canceled. And then we got shut down and everything got, pushed back. So I still plan on competing, but now I'm kind of in a different situation being a brown belt.
Right.
But while I was competing, there for a while we were competing, and it seemed like every 3 months there was a new tournament somewhere. And so I've traveled out of state for them. I've done in-state tournaments. Unfortunately, haven't had the timing and budget to do an IBJJF tournament until I did, and then it got canceled.
Yeah.
So while I was competing quite a bit, I've usually been training pretty like regularly throughout the week, that when it was time for a tournament, I'd maybe change, like we'd do more rolling sessions, and we'd make sure that those that were competing were getting reps in with the higher ranks so that you were challenged a little bit. But I've never really changed the way that I train, usually just because I've got a pretty regular schedule that's pretty packed as it is. And so maybe throw in more no-gi trainings, because I'm very gi heavy. I'm not a no-gi fan. I do no-gi to better my jiu-jitsu and to compete, and that's about it. Like if I have a choice, it's gi all the way. I'm not a huge no-gi fan, never have been. So I maybe do a couple more no-gi reps than I usually would pre-tournament. But usually I've got a high enough amount of reps within my week on the normal that I don't really amp it up. I was getting a little bit more reps in when I was thinking I was going to Worlds, because that's a bigger stage.
Yeah.
But usually I train enough throughout the week that I don't usually do anything crazy. The last year and a half, I've actually started incorporating CrossFit into my regimen. So I was doing an hour of CrossFit and then going to the jiu-jitsu gym for kids class. And then I train for usually an hour and a half every day, Monday through Thursday. And then Fridays is our off day of jiu-jitsu. And so I just do CrossFit on Fridays. And then Saturday would be my usually just CrossFit also, because there's usually no classes on Saturday. And then Sunday would be my rest day, is how I've been doing it. I sprained my ankle pretty bad last week. So the last week and a half haven't been that way, but that's what I've been doing for the last year and a half is CrossFit and then jiu-jitsu. And when I don't have jiu-jitsu, I do CrossFit usually. Or go for a run. I started running last year when everything was shut down. I started running. So my dog and I go for runs quite a bit when I am healthy to do so. But yeah.
Awesome. So, I have to ask this question because, and I feel like every woman always gets this question, but what's the population of your academy like, men to women? Is training with women something really important to you? Do you not really care? Was that a factor when you first started? Because I think as an academy owner, that's something that I kind of face a lot is when women come in, they generally just want to, be training with women. And that's completely understandable. There's maybe like 1 or 2% of them that will say, oh no, like I want to train with the guys too. And they're totally okay with it. But is that something that you faced when you first started? Or do you see that kind of happening as women trickle in?
So when I first started, it was 3 or 4 months into my training before I met another woman on the mats.
Oh, wow.
And usually it was like, you'd see them for a week or 2 weeks consistently, and then you wouldn't see them again for 6 months. So the first probably 2-3 years that I trained, I was the only regular female. I mean, we'd get females that would come in, but like I said, they'd come in consistently for a week or two, and then you wouldn't see them for a period of time. And then they'd come in and then you wouldn't see them, or you'd see them once a week and that was it. And then I would go through these spurts of having regular women, but it wouldn't be the same women. Like I'd get 1 or 2 other girls for 2 weeks, and then it would be 2 different ones for 2 weeks, and that would be 2 different ones, and then the other, they would kind of scatter in.
That sounds very difficult.
Yeah, and then I met my best friend, and she was 2 weeks after having her baby. She was on the mats.
Oh wow!
And so we put her daughter Luna would be like having tummy time. And we'd be drilling or whatever. And if she'd start getting fussy, we'd just like right in the middle of a drill, we'd show her and then we'd start drilling again until she'd start getting fussy again. And I love Luna to death. She's like she's my heart. So, I mean, that was what we did forever is we just, we do our thing on the corner of the mats because I was willing to let her take a minute or two to take care of Luna if she needed to, where the guys just usually didn't get it and they'd kind of get frustrated with her, or she'd have to completely step out to take care of her and then kind of try and find a new partner, where I was like, no, if you need to take 20-30 a minute to take care of her, then cool. And I'll help you and then we'll drill. And so I did that for a while, and then she ended up opening up her own school in Missoula for a while. So I helped her get that gym up and running, and we started a women's class because there was a couple other gyms in town that had some females, and we knew that the frustration usually builds for females, especially the smaller ones, in a gym full of men. And so we set out an hour a week at our gym, no mat fee, just come if you want to. And we had no curriculum or agenda. It was, all right, hi ladies, who has a question today? What have you struggled with this week? And then we would go from there. I was high blue purple at the time that we were doing that. And then we had another purple belt female. And then the rest of us were all were scattered in with the whites and the blues. And so usually the purple belt would kind of pick up and run the class, or if somebody else had some like, well, this is what works for me, they'd take over. But there wasn't really, we had a purple belt male that kind of sat in the corner just so that we had a high ranking person there to make sure that we were, the wrong thing wasn't getting taught or whatever. But he pretty much just sat in the corner and ignored us or played on his phone or played with the kids or whatever while we were doing our thing. And he was there just so that, somebody was there.
Consultant.
Yeah. And other than that, we ran the class. We did what we wanted to do. I mean, were there times where we spent an hour and a half talking instead of doing jiu-jitsu? Yeah. I mean, a couple of times.
Of course. Yeah.
But for the most part, everybody came in with, man, I've just been getting stuck here all week. Or, oh man, these guys have just been smashing me. What can I do? And unfortunately for me, I've been bigger and I've always been the bigger one. And so I've had problems of like, yeah, I've gotten smashed by men on the bottom or whatever, but usually I'm the one doing the smashing because of my size. And so I really struggled personally with that women's only class because it was all of these smaller women coming in with all of these issues with these big people or these big guys smashing them. And I was always the one, like, they do this, they do it like Lexi does that. You know what I mean? And so I wouldn't really be the one with solutions for them because I've never been a small woman. I mean, I've been the smaller one on the bottom of a big guy before, obviously, but I've never been the small woman with a big guy on top of them. And so it actually kind of discouraged me a little bit. Like, I loved hanging out with my girls and I loved sharing what I could when I had something to input, but it was kind of hard for me, to be honest with you, because I was the big person that was smashing them sometimes, you know what I mean? And so I kind of struggled with that. And then I graduated and moved home. She ended up closing her gym and moving. She's in Oregon now, and that gym kind of fizzled. So now the Hamilton gym has quite a few ladies. I mean, they've got 2 regulars who I love to death. They're like my girls. So every time I go over there, I make sure that, or recently they've become my girls. So I can't say every time I go over there, because I'm not there all the time. So it's kind of been like sporadic meetings of them over the last 2 years. And this last, time that I was over there was like, okay, you're my girls, like, we're in this together now. Yeah. One of them tested for her blue belt and the other one was helping her. And so I was just trying to get ready for my brown belt test and was kind of giving them like, this is what happened during my last couple tests. This is what I'm preparing for. Here's my suggestion. If you guys get into this situation while you're testing, I would do this, make sure this doesn't happen. And we really bonded very quickly over that. It was kind of just like, hey guys, every time I was there. And then the last time I was there, we're just like, all right, we're in this, like, we're family, we're good. And where I'm at currently at Imperial, our girls, I wouldn't say we have a women's program, but usually it is very, very rare for me to be the only female on the mat.
Oh, okay.
It's very rare. It happens, but it's very rare. I've got some teenage girls that are up in the adults program. And then I've got some women that kind of come in and out. Usually it's my teenagers that are my regular girls coming in. And then we get new women, it seems like it's been kind of weird the last couple months. Like, it's hard to say whether I don't have any regulars or whether my regulars are just sick, kind of a thing. Yeah. Or who my regular women are or not. But I've been very fortunate that the leadership at Imperial find me a leader. And so whenever there's a new woman that comes in to train, it's, hey, you're going to work with Instructor Panda at the end of the mat. And then usually, unless there's like a size discrepancy or an odd number of women or whatever, I get all the women at the end of the mat, and then the guys all partner up. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that we pick the end of the mat. It's just that's like my space. And so we all end up at the end of the mat.
So are you, sorry to interrupt, are you an instructor there? So are you, because I wanted to ask this question because I know this happens to a lot of women in a lot of gyms where if they're the only female or if they're the higher ranking female, they kind of get put into a position by the instructor when a new girl joins and it's like, okay, go over there, she'll teach you everything. And it's kind of passed on to them. And most women will enjoy that opportunity, but for some women who aren't there to teach, they're there to train, right? They're paying for a service, they want to train. And that's something I'm very cognizant of doing in my academy. When there is a higher ranking female, I'll use them as like, okay, I'll pass them off and trust that they are able to control themselves. And that's why I'll partner like a new person with someone who's experienced, but I'm very cognizant of the fact that I don't want that person to be their mentor all the time, unless they want to, right? But did you ever feel like that was kind of entrusted on you and you didn't really have a choice? Or is that something that you kind of embraced and decided to just kind of take the lead on?
Yeah, I've always wanted to be, and I'm a natural leader anyway. So even if it's like a situation where there's already somebody like leading or no leader, or I don't want to be the leader, I somehow always end up there. And a lot of times it's me. I don't want to say it's like me being like, I'm the leader of the group. If I know what's happening and I know what we're doing and I know where this is going, I have no problems being the person to step up and be like, hey group, let's go. Like, here's how we're going to do this. And it didn't take me very long training jiu-jitsu to know that it was something I wanted to do forever. And it was something that eventually down the road, I wanted to make it a part of my life's work, whether it was a full-time gym owner or a part-time gym owner or a part-time instructor. I knew pretty early that it was something that I wanted to do. Like I said, it was kind of my leadership kind of was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. So I took over doing kids classes while I was in Missoula for a while. And so it was kind of known that I wanted to be a leader and step up. And so Professor Olson is pretty good about I don't know if you want to say pretty good. He usually doesn't partner the women up together. It's not about a woman and a woman. It's about, she's a brand new white belt. I'm going to put her with either an experienced white belt or one of my higher ranks. And if it just so happens that it's woman and woman, cool. If it's a man and a woman, that's what he very much does not see the female part of it. You know what I mean? He's just like, brand new white belt, cool. You're going to go with this person that I trust to not kill you, or this person that's really good at what we're doing. I trust them to walk you through that. He also does a pretty good job of not breaking people up. It's like, if you're going to be like, all right, I'm going to grab you, unless he sees a reason for you not to be a partner together, whether it's a size difference or whatever, he's pretty good about letting them be. So if a new woman comes in and she grabs the other female before class starts and they're standing next to each other when he goes to partner people up, he's pretty good at like, cool, you too. You know what I mean? And so he's very much with the flow of the person coming in. If he can tell that they're not comfortable with the guy and there's another female in the class, then he'll put the females together. Or if he can just tell that they're not comfortable, he'll work with them if there's not another female so that he can kind of figure it out. He's really good with new females coming in. He's also fortunate right now that he's got two regular women, or technically, I guess you could say 3 regular women. And so they do a good job of being like, hey, come train with us. And I've been super fortunate that I'm just in a group of people at both gyms that are very welcoming to everybody. And it's very, very noticeable when you walk in the door that everybody is free to train with everybody. And there's no stay away from this person or this person's too rough or whatever. So I'm very lucky in that sense, at both gyms. So that's what Professor Olson does. He's just got this way that he works it, and it just works for him.
That's good.
And I've never heard of a female walking out of there being like, man, that was uncomfortable. So
really
he has his way that's not really like a label to it, but it works.
Yeah.
At Imperial, for the longest time, it was really just me and our, there was another female that was a regular, and then we had women that came in and out, but we didn't really have any new women that came in and out. If we had a new student, it was almost always a male student for the longest time. And then they opened up their new, and then for a while we were working out at the college campus in their mat room. We didn't have a gym space. And so couple months, so January of last year is actually when Imperial BJJ had its own facility. It wasn't up at the college campus anymore. And that was when we started seeing new students and new female students in. Up until the opening, it was experienced females that were coming in and out. And so I kind of made it clear to Mike, who's the black belt down here, that someday I want to open up my own gym and I want to be that leader. And it took him a while, like on the sidelines watching me and seeing how I interacted with people and me becoming a regular, for him to be like, okay, this is somebody that I want to put my efforts into. And he says, when he came up and was coming up through the ranks, he didn't really have anybody teaching him how to be an instructor. He had his instructors who were kind of the same way, were just kind of thrown into the instructor pool without any guidance onto it. And he is a firm believer in teaching people. If you are going to want to teach in one way or another, he wants to help you. And he wants to help you figure out your coaching style. So he's going to show you how he does it and let you meld it into your coaching style. And so he had kind of watched me and figured out that, okay, she's going to be somebody who's going to be a leader and somebody who's going to step up for us. So I'm going to work with her. And then their kids program got to be too much for the two instructors that were running it to handle, and they needed some help. And so they messaged me and asked if I would be willing to help with the kids program. And I was like, yes, like, don't even ask me two more times. Like, yes, I'm down immediately. When do you want me? I'll be here today if you want me today. And so I started helping out with the kids program. And then it just kind of was like, all right, she's an instructor now. You know what I mean? Like, she's a kids class instructor. It's Instructor Panda. It was for, like, when I first started, he kind of put, we have another brown belt who is also one of the co-owners of the gym. And so Mike or Zach would usually be the ones that would help the new students during adults class. And then as they got more comfortable with me being Instructor Panda, it was pretty much like, all right, new female, you're with Instructor Panda at the end. She's going to take care of you. It was just kind of assumed that if it was a new student, especially a new female student, that I was going to be the one that was going to introduce them, walk them through how we do warm-ups, and be the one that partnered up with them, or be the one that was watching them partner up if it was two new female students. So we do mix females in with the male students. At this point, we just got a new female last week. And so she mixes in, she's a bigger lady, so she mixes in with the bigger males if I'm not there. So we don't have anything against mixing females and males ever. But it's definitely by comfortability. Like, right, you can tell who's comfortable with the guys and who's not. And we've got some teenage girls that are in our adults class that you can just tell if you want to partner them with a guy, they kind of just shut down. Like, yeah, it's awkward. Yeah. Yeah. And so we try not to partner them with the guys. If we do, we fully expect that they're probably not going to learn anything on that day, or at least for me. I mean, I can't speak for Mike or Zach, but if they get partnered with male, I can pretty much tell you that they're not going to carry anything over from today because they're just so uncomfortable. So it's just kind of this unspoken rule, I guess, for all of the gyms that I'm at, that if you're uncomfortable with the males, then we're going to put you with another female, or we'll figure it out. We'll put you with the least intimidating,
Right.
you know, the most comfy bear kind of guy. You know, got our teddy bears in class. And so we'll put you with one of the teddy bears, and he will make it as uncomfortable for you as he possibly can.
Right.
So for me, it was kind of stated that that was the position that I wanted to be in. And I am so happy that I get to be in that position, and very honored that they feel comfortable enough with me and my abilities and my leadership to let me do that with the females. So yeah, I've seen some females kind of get thrust into that spot, and you can tell when they don't want to be. And you can tell how fast the other females learn when they don't want to be, versus when they have a female who wants to teach and wants to be that person. So yeah, I've gotten very lucky that they feel confident enough in me that I get to have my girls, and we get to, you know, do our thing. And I have my little spiels that I give to all of the women that start. You know, this is very much an unnatural form of anything.
Yeah.
North-south is not a position that makes anybody comfortable to start out with.
Mm-hmm.
Having somebody on top of you, especially a male in mount, is uncomfortable. I mean, having a female on top of you in mount can be uncomfortable. So knowing that, it's something that you kind of have to let go. You just got to let go of it. You just got to let your embarrassment and your uncomfortability go. You've got to leave it at the end of the mat, and you can pick it up with you when you leave. But while we're on the mats, it's understood that we're going to be putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations, and everybody's going to be in that uncomfortable situation. You're not the only one that's going to be on the bottom north south. We rotate. So everybody's going to feel in that position, and you just kind of got to let it go. So, I mean, I give that spiel to new women when they come on the mats. And yes, you're a woman. We're never going to put you in a position that's going to be dangerous for you. Right. If you ever feel like you're in a dangerous position, say something. I want you to say something, and we will work around it, whether or not I think it's a dangerous situation or not. If you feel you're in a dangerous or super uncomfortable situation, I want you to tell me, and we'll work around it. But unless it's hitting that line, whatever that line is for you, you just got to let it go. I mean, there's that line of, okay, this is uncomfortable, and this is now no longer jiu-jitsu. This is something else.
Yeah.
You hit that line, I want to know about it. If you're not on that line, if you're just uncomfortable because, oh my God, I've got this guy's crotch right in front of me, you just got to let it go. I mean, that's the sport. That's what we do. And so
you gotta learn to be uncomfortable. You get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's that line, you know, and I've been at a gym where that line has been crossed, and that gym did not last very long. So it's something that I make very clear. Like, look, we're not trying to make you feel uncomfortable. That is not the goal of this.
Right.
So saying that, you know, we need you to communicate. We're not going to put you in a position that we shouldn't be putting you in. So knowing that, we just need you guys to go with it. Yeah. And there's a method to our madness, and there's a reason that we're teaching what we're teaching. And we want you to feel comfortable, and we want you to feel like this is a welcoming environment, but we're also doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it's a learning process, right? It's just part of what jiu-jitsu is you, and I say this to my ladies all the time, is you have to get comfortable. The end goal for me is you'll be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You'll learn how to deal with it. And I think that's the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu is when people kind of push past their limitations. If this is what your limit is, and you learn to kind of push past that, And when you realize it and you see it in one of your students and you see that light bulb go up and they're just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that for me is gold whenever I see that. So it's just part of the learning process. But I wanted to ask you, so we had kind of met each other on in that Facebook group, Women in Jiu-Jitsu.
Women in Jiu Jitsu.
Yes, Women in Jiu Jitsu. Awesome group of ladies. So you had initially posted about being a bigger girl on the mat and reaching out to other girls. So you did briefly talk about some of the challenges that you felt. What do you want to say to other women that are either looking to get into jiu-jitsu, but they feel like they're not the ideal size, or they're not athletic looking enough, or they have that limitation in their head, or, I truly believe that people's feelings are real. So that's what they're feeling. And because this is something that I kind of face when I have women coming in and they'll say on the phone, I don't know what they look like when they're on the phone, but they'll say, I'm not a smaller girl, I'm a bigger girl, or it's the opposite. I'm really tiny and I don't know if I can do this. Or they'll show up here and I can feel and see that they're uncomfortable because they don't look like everybody else on the mat. There's usually maybe one or two girls that they can feel like there's representation there, but for a lot of the times I can sense them being uncomfortable. So what is your advice to school owners, instructors, in that case, and training partners as well? Or what's your advice to women that want to take up the sport, but feel those emotions when they're coming on the mats?
Yeah. So I have like a couple things for each of those topics. For instructors, I think the biggest thing is if you can tell they're uncomfortable, it's probably bigger in their mind and their emotions than you're seeing. So if you think they're uncomfortable, they're probably inside so uncomfortable. And it's not just that they're uncomfortable. Now they're conscious about their size and how they look. And, oh my God, I need to lose weight. And are you kidding me? Like, how am I? I'm so inflexible. I mean, it's not just that they're uncomfortable. Their minds are probably now going through everything that you can possibly think of that has to do with their size and their weight and everything. And so it's not just them being uncomfortable, it's them being them. They're bigger, their weight, their journey that they now see that they're going to have to take to become a smaller woman. Are they ever going to be a smaller woman? Can I ever be that person? Can I ever look like her? You know what I mean? So there's probably more than just them being uncomfortable going through their minds. And so to get them to be comfortable is not just making that woman feel comfortable. You've got to find a way to get those negative feelings that are going through their brain and just get rid of them for however long you can get rid of them for. And that is not going to be like, I've got a solution for you. This is what we're going to do and everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's a process that they're going to have to go through themselves, and they're going to have to be willing to go through that process too, is the other thing. It's not just on you as an instructor to make them feel comfortable and to get rid of all of their negative comments or their negative thinking and everything that goes through there. I think treating the bigger students, the bigger women, like you treat the smaller women is a big thing. Like, yes, absolutely. There is partnering like partners together, right? You don't want to put your 300 and some pound woman with your 90-pound girl. I mean, depending on what the drill is, that may not be ideal, especially for them learning how to do it, right? If you're trying to teach a bigger woman how to escape guard or how to break a guard, you don't want to put them with a partner who can't get their legs around them.
Right.
And you may not have somebody who can get their legs around them, but somebody who can get pretty darn close is probably the partner you want to put them with. And so it's hard to that fine line of treating them like all of the women and treating them or giving them the class that's going to allow them to be successful. And so it's so hard for me to be like, instructors, do this and it'll work for all of your big women, because I don't know what your other students are like. I don't know how big, what the range of your students are. It's really hard. So my biggest thing with instructors is if I tell you I can't do this move, it's not because I'm like, I can't do it. Like me being that stubborn person being, I can't. We want a can-do attitude. It's not anything along those lines of me being like, I can't. It's usually because I physically can't. I can't reach that far. I can't come up in one movement. It's not because I'm like not in a can-do attitude. If I tell you I can't do it, it's because I physically can't. There's something that's making it so that I can't do that move. And a lot of times I've had instructors be like, don't tell me you can't, you can do it. And then they push the person's foot to my hand so that I can grab it and say, see, you can do it.
Right.
I can't, though. I can if you're going to sit there in the middle of a tournament and push that person's foot to me so that I can reach it. But in all reality, in a roll or in a self-defense situation, a tournament situation, I can't do this move because you're not always going to be there giving me your foot. And I'm not going to have a partner that's going to give me their foot in all situations. I'm not going to have somebody who's going to help me come up or whatever. And so if somebody were to tell you I can't do it, usually you can tell if it's because they're just in a, I can't do it. Or if it's a, I can't do it. And so finding ways to work around that is so important. So you can't reach the foot. All right. So you're going to have to shrimp before, or you're going to have to hip out, or you're going to have to do this, or this move's just not for you. So while everybody else is working this move, here's what I want you to do, because this move is going to be have a higher probability for you as a bigger woman than this one that you can't do. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to do this move. While everybody else is doing the class movement that bigger person can't do, they're doing something that's successful for them.
Right.
And I've had that done for me several times. Like a movement's been shown for class and I can't do it. I just physically, I can't, for one reason or another, I can't make it work. Cool. I want you to do this sweep instead because you can, and it's going to work for you. And it's going to work well for you. So while everybody else and my partner is doing the class sweep, I'm doing the one that's working for me. And it's tricky because it's not the class sweep, and I know it's not the class sweep. And so part of me is being like, well, I can't do what everybody else is doing. But I'm being successful in the move that I can do.
Right.
And so that was a big thing for me. And I actually had to talk to my professor and be like, look, when I tell you I can't do something, I'm not telling you I can't do it in a poor me, I can't do it. I'm telling you I physically can't do it. Okay, so I need you to realize that when I say, Professor Olson, I can't do this, it's not me being whatever. It's me telling you that I physically cannot make this work.
Right.
And I need you to help me work around it, or I need you to give me something different. And so I had to have that conversation with him, because every time I said, I can't do this, he was saying, don't tell me that, you can do it. You can do anything. And so that was a big hurdle that I had to get over with him and make him understand that I'm not saying I can't because I don't have a can-do attitude. I'm telling you I can't do it.
Right. Right.
And so that was
better for you then.
Yeah. And that was just a conversation that I had to have with him. I had to wait after class and wait for him and be like, hey, when we were doing that move, this is what I need. And this is what I need from you in order to make this work. And he's been awesome about it ever since, you know what I mean? But it just had to be explained to him what I was meaning, you know what I mean? And what I needed from him.
Right.
And it makes sense and it works now. And so for instructors, that's one thing I guess I would say to instructors of bigger women. If they're telling you they can't do something, figure out, is it because they don't have a can-do attitude and they actually can, they just don't think they can? Or is it because they actually cannot do it?
Right.
And then you need to figure out, can I give them, and maybe just be upfront with them and ask them, can I give you something else that you can do? Or do we need to fail a whole bunch of times to figure out how you can do this and make this work? And it might be that one day, no, I need 100 different fails to figure out how to get this to work. And another day, they're in a state of mind that, no, I need to be successful today. I need something that's going to make me feel successful today. And so that would be for instructors, my one thing, if you're going to have bigger females, and maybe not even bigger females, just bigger people in your classes. That's something that I think everybody should be cognizant of when you're dealing with bigger people, is it might not be them just thinking they can't do it. They might actually not be able to do it.
Right. No, that's
not making
really
a big deal of it if they tell you I can't do it.
Yes. Yeah. Just accepting it. Right. It comes to the point where as an instructor, you just have to realize and understand that and this is something that I always tell everyone too, is that everyone's body is different. Everyone's abilities are going to be different. You can have two people that are the same weight, but one might be more flexible than the other, or one might have limitations that the other one might not have. Right. So understanding that and recognizing that all of your students are going to be unique, their abilities are going to be different. And, how they perform their jiu-jitsu is going to be unique to them.
Yeah.
And that's something that I tell my ladies all the time, is that you can't compare your jiu-jitsu to someone else. You have a different body. You have different experiences, right?
Yeah.
So the way you do an arm bar and the way I do an arm bar might be a little different. It's the same technique, but we get there in a different way. It's the same. Yeah. It's the same end, but the way we get there might be a little different. That's totally okay.
The way that I arm bar you is not how I'm going to arm bar the person next to you. Exactly. It's not going to be how I arm bar the next person. It's all, everybody has a different body style, and everything's going to work differently on those different body styles.
Yes.
And so you may have a movement that's just with your drilling partner, it's just clicking and it's working great. And you go with somebody that has they've got longer arms, or they've got wider shoulders, or they're bigger, or they're smaller. It's not going to work exactly the same.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important for people. Right now, we can't switch partners. We're still in lockdown here in Canada. So we haven't been able to switch and work with different people. But I think that's so important, is, getting a different training partner, and experiencing different body types and athletic abilities and intensity levels, right? Like everyone's jiu-jitsu is so different. And if you stick with the same person every single time, first of all, you're not challenging yourself, or you're not really learning. You're staying comfortable isn't always a good thing in jiu-jitsu. You have to get uncomfortable in order to grow. So switching it up and having people work with different shapes and sizes and genders, I think is really important for someone's jiu-jitsu. So I think that's something that coaches and even training partners need to be aware of, that you're not always going to have your training partners always going to show up that day, right? Everyone has their favorite partner that they love training with, but I think that is part of it, is that you kind of have to have that open mind. And I think that's jiu-jitsu is so enjoyable for people, is that it's always different. It's not the same as, I don't know, when you go in the gym, it's the same thing all the time, and it can be a little bit boring. Whereas jiu-jitsu, it's different, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that's would be my advice to bigger women who want to start or who are struggling, is you've got to realize that we don't all have the same bodies, and we're not all going to have the same bodies. And even if you're the only one in your gym, that's big. I just started, a new bigger lady just came in. Other than that, it's been me and really, really, really tiny ladies forever. You know what I mean? I haven't shared the mat with a bigger woman. I haven't. I mean, I've had tournaments one tournament where I had a bigger woman in my bracket, and that was it. So it's always pretty much just been me as the bigger woman on the mats. And that's fine for me. I've learned to live with that. But you're not always going to be the only one your size on the mat. Right. And I think we put this line there too, that, well, I'm the biggest woman. Even if you've got a guy standing next to you that's the exact same size as you, it doesn't matter. I'm the biggest woman. How am I supposed to do this? While the big guy next to you is kicking butt and taking names. But just because you're a woman who's bigger, you're somehow less than. And that's not true. So you're a bigger woman. Be cognizant of it and know that during certain drills, you're going to have to be careful. And rolling with certain partners, you're going to have to be careful. It's just the nature of it. But use what you've got. Yes. Like, just because I'm bigger than you, I've got something you don't have. I've got size over you. Yeah. And a lot of times it's looked as this horrible thing. Like, you're bigger than her, you need to be careful. You're bigger than her, use it. You're bigger than him, use it. You think that little smaller person's not going to use their flexibility and the fact that they're smaller and they can just wiggle out of everything when they're going against you because they're smaller than you know. They're going to use every ounce of their small frame to use that for an advantage. Mm-hmm. They're going to use their littleness to get out of all of these little tight spaces, to be super fast and super flexible. So use it. You've got the weight on them in a safe manner, being cognizant of the fact that you're bigger than them. Use it. Yeah. You get in side control top, drop your weight, make it miserable, make it suck. The amount of people that I've had tapped my side control, a lot. And side control is also my favorite position. So I'm pretty good at it, right? It's my favorite position. I've spent a lot of time working on it. I love it. So therefore it's the stronger part of my game, but I use it, right? And there's certain times where you've got to be careful. Like, I don't use my side control with the kids. I use a side control with the kids. Right. With somebody who's starting out, man or woman, I don't use my side control with them. I use a side control. But there's this, like, it's looked down on if you use your weight. And in certain situations, it should be like, you should be careful. You have this power, use it responsibly, kind of a thing. But just because you're a bigger woman doesn't mean you are less than in any way. Okay. It just means that your game is different than the smaller girl's game. You have a different advantage than she does. And you're not making her advantage less than. It's just a different advantage. She's smaller than you. She's going to be faster than you. She's going to be able to wiggle out of all those little holes. You're bigger. You're going to be able to put more pressure down. And so I think a lot of times it's just, you're bigger, you're dangerous. And I don't think that's the case. And I think that's something that's really important for bigger women to realize, that your size is not a disadvantage. Right. Just like their lack of size is not a disadvantage. It can be, but it's not. In this situation, right, we're just talking in general about bigger women versus smaller women. Just being a bigger woman. Yeah. Your size is not a disadvantage. Right. It can be if you let it be a disadvantage, but it is not. Yeah. It's an advantage. That's my advice to bigger women is use it as an advantage. Be cognizant of the fact that you're bigger, but use your size as your advantage. We may not have a lot of them as bigger women, but let's use what we have. If you're going to get somebody in side control and you're bigger than them, drop your weight, make it suck. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think, whatever God gave you, you use it. Right. That's, and I think it's interesting that you said that, I think we always place these limitations on us. And obviously I don't know what it feels like to be a bigger woman. I don't understand. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I learned a lot from this conversation. So thank you for that. But I think it's important in general for people to stop putting those limitations
on themselves and just let them go, like you said, and embrace them on the mats, right? Because if you're not going to use it anywhere else, like if you're not going to use it on the mats, where else are you going to use it? Right. So, and that's where you will learn to just kind of love yourself, love your body, and appreciate what you have. And when I see that in, like teen girls or, really small kids, we have parents that come in and say, their ninth grader is like the smallest one in their class, haven't really fully developed yet, and they want to put them in something. They're too small for the football team, or they might be too big for, another sport. And then they come here and they realize that they're just like everyone else, do things a little bit differently, and they can use what they have to their advantage. And they end up loving themselves. And that is always my goal for everyone, is you come in here, whether you're big or small, you're going to leave loving yourself at the end of the day. And you're going to learn to love what your body can do, what it's capable of. And I mean, that's just jiu-jitsu in a nutshell, right? You realize that I have this amazing body and I can do so many amazing things with it. And there's no limit, right?
Yeah.
Obviously keep your partner safe and all that, but
I may not be able to invert like you can. I may not have that ability to go upside down like you can, but I mean, I dare you to get out of my side control. You know what I mean? Like does my weight help my side control? Yeah, it does. I mean, 100% would, if I were to lose 150 more pounds right now, would my side control be as effective? Maybe not. But the strength of my side control is not my weight. It's my positioning. It's my fundamentals. It's how I go about my side control. And when I get into side control, I take advantage of it because it's my position. So I think a lot of times we look at like, her side control is good, but she outweighs you by 100 pounds. No, her side control is good. We don't say that big guy's side control is good because he outweighs that little guy by 200 pounds. He's just got a killer side control. And so I think it's looked at that too much, like, but you outweigh her by how many pounds? No, I have a good side control.
Totally. And there's technique in there, right? It's not, you're not just laying there in side control. You know how to use your weight, how to shift your weight, where to place it, right? So there's so much more to it. And
and I mean, you want to use it as an example. Find a 2-day-old white belt who's the same size as that person who's got that bigger person who's got killer side control. And you get the same black belt underneath of them. So I mean, just for example, you put somebody, so I hate to give you guys my weight, but you put somebody 290 pounds, 2 days on the mat, on top of a black belt in side control. And then you put me on top in side control. I guarantee I'm going to be able to hold it longer, if not hold it completely, better than that 2-day-old 290 pound person.
For sure.
I've been doing this for 8 years. I've got the fundamentals behind me. I've got the experience behind me. So, I mean, is it a factor? Yes. We can't say that it's not. I mean, it would be very bad of us to say that it's not. That's when people start getting hurt. That's when it becomes an issue. But it's more than just the weight. I'm good at what I do. And I know that I'm good at what I do. And that helps, right? The experience, the fundamentals are so important. It's more than just me laying on you at 290 pounds. I can lay on you at 290 pounds all I want. But if I just drop and I lay on you, you're going to get out. It's not my 290 pounds that are keeping you on the mat. It's my fundamentals that are keeping you on the mat.
For sure. And I mean, it's all technique, right? It all comes down to technique. Something that my instructor always says, and he makes the exact same comparison when he starts to hear that, oh, well, I'm too big or I'm too small. And he's like, it doesn't make a difference. As long as you're using your technique and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just see how we're doing for time. So we're about an hour in. I just had a couple of last questions that I do want to respect your time as well. I'm learning so much here, so this is awesome. So you talked about competing, and I know I asked you about this before, but how difficult do you think it is to come? Because most of the girls that I talk to and the girls in my networks, there's always a whole bunch of girls that are the same size, and then there's the one or two that, are heavyweights. And so when they go from training with a bunch of smaller girls and then they go into a competition, they're all of a sudden with people that are the same size as them. Do you ever feel like there's a difference there, or do you like, how do I question?
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like that is easy to translate, or like what do you have to do extra in order to prepare for going up against somebody who might be the same challenge as yourself?
I mean, so I would say at any rank, if you're a heavyweight female, you are not doing yourself a favor by training only with female featherweights or lightweights. You're doing yourself a disservice. Is your technique getting better? I hope so. Yes. Right. Are you getting the training hours in? Is your cardio getting better? Yes, it is. But as soon as you step on the mat with somebody who's your size, you lose your advantage. Right. We were just talking about, right? My weight's my advantage against a lightweight, right? I'm going to use what I have, and what I have is the weight. So if all of a sudden I'm going against the same size person, I lose some of that advantage. Do I still have a weight advantage? Yes, right? Because I know how to drop my weight as a heavier person. But I lose that extra advantage that I had by being 100 pounds heavier, right?
Right.
I just said it wasn't an advantage. In this sense, it is, right? As soon as if you're the same level, right? Because if I'm competing as a white belt, I'm probably competing against a white belt. A blue belt, I'm probably competing against a blue belt.
Yeah.
Which means that our skill level should be somewhere comparatively around the same. We're the same belt.
Yeah.
So now I don't have that weight advantage because she has the weight advantage, right? We both are the same weight. Our advantage is the same. Our skill level should technically be the same. So if all of I'm doing as my weight is working against people who are going to be in the lighter weight classes, even if they're at the same level, I'm doing myself a disservice when I get into the competition floor, because now my advantage that I've been working against these smaller women is gone in a way. We'll say like half of it's gone, right? So if you, as a heavier woman, know that you're going to compete and you don't have, let's say you don't have anybody your weight or bigger in your gym, then you better be spending all of your time with the highest ranks that you do have in your gym. So that when you go against that person who is the same weight as you, your skill levels here, right? Because you've been working with all of these high ranking, you've been challenging yourself so much that you've been learning. Ideally, right? Just like on a symbolistic level. Right. If you have somebody who's your size, even if they're a lower rank, you should be spending as much time with them as you can. Because you will see where, usually I can just muscle this person or use my body weight to tilt the scale. Now you can't. So now what are you going to do? How are you going to change your position? How are you going to get the advantage in that situation? So I've been very lucky that in the sense of I haven't had a bunch of females. You know what I mean? There's like that disadvantage to being the only female. And there's also that advantage to being the only females. All I've been able to, or not been able to, but leading up to my first competition, all I was able to do back then was work with men. I didn't have any females. So even though some of them were not my size, they were still built like freight trains and could muscle me at my bigger size around. And so for me, my competition experience has been a little different. I've competed, a lot. I don't even know how many times. 15 or more probably since I started training.
Oh, wow.
And in those tournaments, 4 of them have I been in the women's division, if that. I've always been put into the men's division. It's just how it's worked. And a lot of times, even when I was a white belt, I was not put into the men's white belt division. I was put into the men's blue belt division. Or I wasn't put into the men's beginner division. I was put into the men's intermediate division because there were no men, or there weren't enough men in my weight class. You know what I mean? So a lot of my white belt and blue belt competitions, I was put up in experience or level wise, as well as being put into the men's division.
Wow.
But it was my second tournament. There was only like 3 other females in the entire tournament, and I outweighed all of them by like 150 pounds. I mean, they were tiny. They were very, very small. And the tournament director was not comfortable putting me in their division, whether they were white belts or blue belts or not. And so he went to my coach and said, hey, would she be willing to go in the men's division? And my coach, without asking me, was like, yeah, put her in the men's division. He was like, cool, throw her in the men's division. Like, she's got this, no worries. Like, way more faith in me than I had in myself. And so after that tournament, it was just known, if Lexi's registered for the tournament and you don't have a bracket for her in the weight division, which usually I didn't, and you're not comfortable with her weight versus the weight of the women who are registered, you can put her in the men's division. It was like from that tournament on, it wasn't even asked. It was just, okay, this is the division you're going into. And so I've had a couple brackets in the female. I was always the heaviest in those female brackets, but I was usually put into the men's brackets. And sometimes I was still the heaviest in the men's brackets. Sometimes I was in the middle. Sometimes I was, on the lighter end of the bracket. But we all know scientifically, the same man at the same weight is going to be stronger than me. He's just going to be. So even if I'm the heaviest in my bracket, they're still probably as strong as I am, or not stronger. And so me training with men and pretty much, men of all sizes, and competing against men who are heavier than me, I got very comfortable doing that, right? And I was doing very well in the men's divisions. I may not have been winning all of them, but I was still doing well in all of them. And at the end of the day, that made me better at my jiu-jitsu. I firmly believe that I would not be at the skill level that I am at this point had I not had to compete against the men.
Right.
I don't think that I would be as confident in my jiu-jitsu had I not had to compete against the men. Because I would go in terrified every single time. 10 tournaments in the men division, all 10 tournaments, still 100% terrified that I was going to die and be left on the mat in a ball while the men walked off triumphantly. I still learned more about myself. I learned more about my jiu-jitsu. And I learned more about my coaches doing that than I ever did in the women's division. And every time I walked out of a women's division, it was always, it was very rarely spoken, but it was always this unspoken, yeah, but look how much bigger she is than you. I was waiting for a medal ceremony at a tournament in Idaho one time, where the lady that I went against, she was only like 30 pounds lighter than I was. We were both in the heavyweight. It was one of the tournaments that I actually got to compete against a woman in. And her significant other, black belt, came up and said, wait a second, how much do you weigh? And so I told him it was written on my hand. And he looks at her and he goes, yeah, but honey, she outweighed you by about 30 pounds. So don't feel
such terrible attitude, honestly.
And so it was like, yes, I outweighed her, but that wasn't why I won.
Yeah.
I did not beat her. I did not submit her because I outweighed her. That had nothing to do with it. Was it an advantage that I used? Yeah, a little bit. But that was not why I won. That was not why I was about to go get the gold medal over her. It had nothing to do with it. And so how I felt about myself and my jiu-jitsu after those couple times competing in the women's division was nothing compared to how I felt about myself and my jiu-jitsu after competing in the men's division. Even if I only won one match, or I tied all three of them, or lost all three of, or however many it was, I always felt better about myself and my jiu-jitsu coming out of that. My coach he was always proud of me. He's always been proud of me. He's a fantastic coach. But there was always more. Did you see that? Did you see how you did that? Well, when he did this, you make sure next time, you know what I mean? There was always more conversation about my jiu-jitsu after those matches with the men than there ever was about my matches with the females.
Wow.
So I have embraced that. I've been like, you want to put me in the men's division? Let's go. Like, I got this. Even if I lose all three of my matches, I got to do jiu-jitsu today. So let's do it. I got another chance to compete. I got another chance to get out there in front of people and show what I can do. So I've completely embraced that, but I also fully understand not wanting to embrace that. Like, either being afraid of going against the men or just feeling like I shouldn't have to go against the men. I fully understand that. And if that's how you want to go about your competition career, that's how you have to make that decision. Right. But as a bigger female, you have to understand that if you make that decision, I'm never going into the men's bracket. I'm only ever competing in the women's division, and that's it. You may not compete a lot. You may pay for a lot of competition registrations that you don't get to use. Right. Or you may get in the start of your medal ceremony with somebody telling their wife or girlfriend or whatever, yeah, but she outweighed you by how many pounds. It's fine.
Right.
And if that's the decision that people want to make, you go, girl. Like, you decided to compete, you're doing jiu-jitsu, you got up off the couch, you do it. Like, more power to you. That's a decision that you have to make, and you have to be able to live with it. I decided that I wanted to compete, and I didn't care who I was competing against. And I felt like I had more power within myself when I was in the men's division. And I've almost kind of like, should I just register for the men's division? I mean, I'm in a different situation now as a brown belt, but that's a decision that I made. And I'm very, very happy and very comfortable and very glad that I made that decision. But I was talking to another lady, and I was very upfront with her and said, you need to make this decision as a bigger female. And whatever decision you make, you go for it, and you go, girl. I'm proud of you. Whatever decision you make, cool. I'm happy you were able to look inside yourself and make that decision, and that it wasn't made for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also suggested her that she talk with her coach, because I never would have gone into the men's division, that tournament, if my coach hadn't made the decision for me. And so this wasn't really a decision that I made that first time. It was made for me. But I told her to sit down with her coach and say, hey, if we get to this tournament and there's nobody anywhere near my weight bracket, and they don't feel comfortable with me going down in the weight brackets or combining all of the brackets or whatnot, and they want to put me in the men's division, what should I do? Because you may have a coach that does not want you in the men's division in any way, shape, or form. So it might not be a decision that you get to make as a competitor with a hands-on instructor. And it may be a decision that he doesn't really want to go with, but you guys talk it out, and you guys are comfortable enough in your jiu-jitsu and his instruction, and that you guys decide to go with it, or he may be an instructor that was like mine, that was like, if they're going to put you in the men's division, you're going to do it. Like, I have full faith in your abilities. May God be with you. Go for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's also, you need to have that conversation with yourself before you talk to your coach. So if your coach is like, no, you're going to compete in the men's division, if that's what it's going to be, that you're like, okay, or you're, no, I am not, and this is why. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally.
So that's awesome. Way longer than an answer that you wanted, but
no, that was amazing. I am sitting here thinking, I have so much admiration for you for doing that. even though it was that decision wasn't made by you initially, but what came out of it after, and the fact that you're able to walk away, you know, knowing what you know now and achieving what you've achieved and done all the comps that you've done. And I think that's something that I'm not a huge competitor. I don't compete a whole lot, but when I did compete, I'm absolutely terrified every time I go into a competition. And so right now we've been like in lockdown for like a year on and off. So competing is something that I feel like everyone in our city just kind of has to get back to in that mindset, because there's been no comps for like a year. Training has been like really on and off. So just getting into that mindset is one thing. And then, you know, for me, like I always end up competing at somebody my size. And even then that's terrifying for me, because it's somebody that I don't know. I don't know their style. I don't know what kind of jiu-jitsu they do. I don't know their intensity. Cause again, you get so comfortable with the people that you're around, and then all of a sudden, so for you to be able to like completely go out of your comfort zone again and again and again and again, and then learning to be comfortable with it and now embracing it and looking forward to it, I think is absolutely amazing. So
I was joking with my black belt. So the last competition I did, the state championships, they had a little thing in their like rules and regulations thing. And it literally said, men will not be permitted in the women's division and women will not be permitted in the men's division. I mean, it said exactly that. Men, not in women, women, not in men.
Right.
And then I show up for the tournament and I'm in the men's division. And so we were joking about it. Like, it should have said, men will not be permitted in the women's division. Women will not be permitted in the men's division unless you are Lexi, and then you will be allowed. And it was like, I wonder if they realize that that's in their rules, that they just broke their own rules by putting me in this division. Like,
I was actually wondering about that, because I've seen that rule in our local tournaments, and I don't know how that would go here. Like I've never seen it happen. So never say never. I think that would be really interesting to watch. I love watching women compete. It's like watching a movie for me. It's so entertaining and you just learn so much. So thank you so much for this interview. I've learned a lot. I think a lot of people that are watching can also learn a lot as well. And hopefully they've, taken a few things away from it. If you're ever I don't know if you ever travel up to Canada, but if you're ever in Alberta, I don't really know my American geography that well, but I think we share a border. I'm not sure, but
well, we're like, if I wanted to go to Calgary on a road trip, I'm like 4.5 hours away from Calgary.
Not too bad. That's really close. I think a lot of people from here travel down to like Seattle and stuff to go shopping in Montana. I've never been, maybe one day, but
if you're ever in Montana, come train with me.
For sure. I'll definitely look you up, and same for you. If you're ever up here visiting the mountains, definitely stop by. I would love to have you. And so, is there anything else you'd like to share? Any last words before I end the call here?
If you're a woman who's struggling, no matter your size, you're a woman who wants to get into jiu-jitsu, no matter your size, I say do it. 100% do it. And try every gym that's in your region or in your area that's you're willing to travel to on a daily basis. If there's any gym in your circumference, try them all. Because gym 5 may be the one that's just your family. And just try it. Just give it a shot. And if it's not your sport, then it's not your sport. Cool. Like, everybody has their thing. But I fully believe that every woman should try jiu-jitsu, whether it's one class a month or one class every 3 months, because I believe that every woman deserves to feel comfortable in every situation. You deserve to be able to walk through that dark alley and not be afraid.
Yes.
And so if for nothing else, if you don't want to compete, don't compete. if for nothing else than you being confident walking down that dark alley by yourself, you should try jiu-jitsu. Even if it's once a month, if it's once every quarter, if it's a self-defense class twice a year, do it. Everybody should try it. You may find that you get on that mat and you have found your place. Did I ever think that Brazilian Jiu Jitsu would be my sport and be my love? No. I mean, I ever think I would be like getting choked and armbarred and that would be my happy place? No, absolutely not. But it is. And for whatever reason, it clicked with me and I clicked with it, and it's home. You know, this is where I found my second and third family, and I have all of these people that I've met through this that I never would have met anywhere else. I never would have met my best friend had it not been for jiu-jitsu. We didn't run in any of the same circles other than jiu-jitsu. So if you are struggling, try other gyms and see if maybe it's just that you just need another gym, or you just need another teaching style. Maybe it's not the environment of your gym. Maybe you just need another teaching style that's in a good environment.
Right.
So that would be if you've never tried it and you're thinking about it, do it. Try all the gyms. If you're struggling, try another gym, or take a break. Take a 2-week break. Don't think about it. Put your gis in a box in a closet and then come back. And I mean, I've been doing this for 8 years and I had multiple breaks. I had one for 6 months where I didn't train at all for 6 months. I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking a break. If you're struggling, there's nothing wrong with taking a step back and figuring out if jiu-jitsu really is for you. There's nothing wrong with it. As long as you come back and you try it again. Right? So I think that's my 2 cents. Everybody should try it. And if you're struggling, it's okay to take a break and it's okay to try other gyms. That would be my last little go-to. And if you're on Instagram or Facebook, if you're on Facebook, join this Women in Jiu-Jitsu page.
Yes.
I found it a couple weeks ago and it has been amazing. It's been so much fun. I've met some really, really awesome women through it. And if you're on Instagram, follow me. I do more than just jiu-jitsu content. There's a lot of dogs and horse pictures. But follow me on Instagram if you want and message me.
Your handle in the video once I go. I won't edit too much, but I will leave it there for everyone so you guys can follow along and get in touch. And I think if you
feel free to message me if you have questions. I'm more than happy to answer any questions at all, or you have an issue that you've got, message me and we'll see if we can figure out a way around it.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Lexi. I will definitely be in touch and I'll be following along as well. So again, thanks so much for your insight, for sharing your experience, giving the advice, and hopefully we'll catch each other on the mats one day.
Yes, hopefully.
Alrighty. I'll leave it at that then. Bye now.
Thanks. Bye.
So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Drop some comments below if you have any questions for Lexi. Do follow her on Instagram. And if you have any questions, if you are also a heavyweight or if you have questions about her training, reach out to her. She's very approachable. If you leave some comments below, I'll make sure she gets those questions. Otherwise, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.